We are going to get started. So first, I am going to share our Google Doc today. This Google Doc is a place for you if you don't get your questions answered during this actual presentation. It's a place for you to add your questions, and our fellows will be able to answer it later. So feel free to go on that Google Doc. You'll see the order that we are going in today. There are spaces for each of your questions because we'd love to answer everybody's questions, even if we cannot get to them all in the time that we have together today. So I am Kat Duncan. I'm the Director of Innovation at the Reynolds Journalism Institute. I'm super excited to bring our 2024 fellows to you today. They each have built amazing resources for journalists to help you with challenges, gaps, and issues in the industry. All of their resources are free and live to use now. And today, each of them will be giving a little demo. We'll try to do 1 to 2 questions per a fellow. And then at the end, if we have more time, we will take more questions. So if you have questions today, please put them in the Q&A option or in the Google Doc. You can throw anything you want in the chat, but it's very easy to miss stuff in the chat. So if you put it in those 2 places, I'll be able to track it better and be able to get it to the fellows. Okay. And if you need anything, feel free to DM me and I'll handle it while the fellows are presenting. So we're super excited and we are going to start with Alex. So Alex, take us away.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. I'm Alex, and I'm a web developer at the Salt Lake Tribune. Today, I'm going to talk to you about my resource, which is the Article as Homepage Toolkit. So just a little bit of background. It's no surprise that the homepage traffic for news sites has been on a steady decline. We're consistently seeing readers enter sites through article pages directly from search engines and social media and other sources. For example, at my newsroom, the Salt Lake Tribune, we have noted the decline since about 2021, with 83% of our visitors entering via article pages. So with only about 17% of our traffic coming from our homepage, we quickly realized that optimizing the article page is going to be incredibly important for our audience engagement and just the business as a whole. Now, with the help of RJI, I've created this toolkit designed to help newsrooms rethink how they present their article pages. My toolkit provides actionable strategies, best practices, industry tools, and some real-world examples, all to help you better your article page. So running through my project's website, which is here on the screen, I have 7 main sections, and with each section, I've included a case study page to go along with it. And we use my newsroom's website, the sltrib.com, as a case study to test and try out a lot of the principles that I'm going to show you through my project. In this intro section, I talk a little bit more about sort of what I just told you, as far as like the decline of article pages and other sources that have very similar findings. So you'll see that all in here. And then in the next section, which is the audience, this one goes over surveying, which I think is the very first step in better understanding your readers and making actionable changes that affect them directly. So there is more information on surveying tools. One of my favorites is the sample size calculator tool, which is great when you're trying to figure out how big your sample size should be and what the percentage is. I also have data analysis and how to do that. And then in my case study, I go over a lot of like the survey that we presented and how we came up with some of our findings. And then I've included graphs to kind of represent those findings as well. And the next big section is going to be wireframe. And I go over like what it is, because I really think this is a very under talked about topic. So I go into more detail so you can better understand what it is. I also offer some tools and resources for you to use. Most of these are free and accessible. And in my case study for this section, I've included the Figma and that we created for our article page redesign for the sltrib.com, and you can take a look at that too. The next section is going to be like A/B testing. So I go over how to A/B test and basic steps on how to get started, and then as well as tools that you can use. And in the case study, I actually included a piece of code for, basic JavaScript that you can implement yourself if you're going to make your own A/B tool, because that is actually what we ended up doing. And we used something very similar to this. We have our code base is React, so it's a little different, but basic structure and functionality is there. And I show you how to use it and how to implement it if you were to do that. But essentially, it creates two buckets, a control and an experiment for you to sort of create these two people for your A/B testing. And then the next one is going to be revenue strategies. So I go over three really big ones, which is ads within articles, donation asks, and subscriptions. And in each section, you'll find, again, examples that are being used, popular subscription platforms. And just to reiterate, these are sort of the three main ones, revenue strategies that we use ourselves. And I've included a case study on what we're doing to test. So this goes kind of back to the A/B testing and what we're doing there. And then I've included all the articles I wrote for RJI. It's been a long few months, so those are there. And then the last section is to stay connected, and you can feel free to contact me there if you have any questions or feedback about my project. And then I also have a subscribe because I will be updating this resource. I do see it as a living, breathing thing that could be updated and changed. So I'll be making updates for sure as we continue to A/B test, because we're very much in the midst of that right now. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation.
All right. Do we have any questions for Alex? I don't see any in the doc or the Q&A at this time. If you don't, we will move on to the next. And if you do come up with any questions specifically about her project or any of the sections in it, please feel free to throw it on the Google Doc, and we will try to get to it after everybody has done their demos. Okay? All right, Andy, you are up.
Thank you, Kat. Sharing my screen. I'm Andy Lee Roth, and I work with Project Censored, a nonprofit newswatch organization. And today, with the support of RJI, I'm launching algorithmic literacy for journalists. Algorithms are the essential building blocks for a host of AI systems that are revolutionizing news. And every news worker, regardless of their specialty, needs some degree of algorithmic literacy, or the ability to understand and critically evaluate algorithmic systems and the consequences of their use. So algorithmic literacy for journalists consists of 6 core resources. 3 of these focus on the social impacts of algorithms beyond the world of tech and their potential for perpetuating existing biases and inequalities. So there's a section on relevant questions to ask that includes how specific systems were developed and how those systems impact labor and the environment. There is another section on sourcing stories and why it's important to talk with sources from outside of industry. This module includes both positive and negative examples taken from actual news articles, exemplifying kind of how to or how not to source stories. And a third module in this section focuses on the importance of framing, including, for example, how and why it's important to avoid framing stories about competition between tech companies as arms races or horse races. Overall, these 3 sections provide solutions to basic concerns that arise all the time in reporting on algorithms, and they help journalists to confront power imbalances by promoting tech industry accountability and public understanding. The next 3 sections that I want to highlight are deal with what is known as algorithmic gatekeeping. and how to respond to it. So gatekeeping online practices that determine which stories circulate widely and which are buried from the public's view. The module on shadow bans will be particularly of interest, I think, to journalists and newsrooms that cover topics such as police violence that many social media platforms flag as controversial or at odds with so-called community standards. And we provide 5 recommendations to minimize the likelihood of your content being subject to shadow banning and what to do if you think it has been. Another section focuses on advertising block lists, explaining what they are and how they can undermine the reach of your content online. And that section provides 9 practical guidelines to evade block lists. And finally, in the section on algorithmic gatekeeping, there's a module on do-it-yourself algorithm audits that's basically a how-to guide for reporters who are interested in avoiding the common pitfall of treating algorithms as mysterious or inscrutable black boxes. These core resources are supplemented by 2 additional elements. For those who want to dig deeper, there's an additional resources page that includes how-to guides, examples of high-quality reporting, policy, regulations, and there is also a glossary of essential terms that provides jargon-free definitions of terms that are often used in conversations about AI, but not always clearly defined. When algorithms fail, they can lead to discrimination, financial losses, privacy breaches, and more, the Nieman Journalism Lab reported in a 2019 story that referred to the algorithm beat as the next frontier of journalism. Since that time, the power of algorithms has multiplied, as has corresponding increase in public concern. And one key takeaway of this project is that journalists and newsrooms have vital roles to play in helping the public understand the promises, the limitations, and the risks of algorithmic technology in our everyday lives. But promoting algorithmic literacy for journalists isn't only about improving public understanding, as important as that is. The second key takeaway of this project is that algorithmic literacy for journalists can help revitalize public trust in journalism. As powerful as they can be, AI systems aren't designed to seek the truth or to ensure that their representations of the world minimize harm. And by contrast, journalism's ethical principles, including its cardinal commitments to transparency and accountability, distinguish journalism, newsrooms, and the profession. So algorithmic literacy for journalists was designed to encourage more newsrooms and reporters to cover current and emerging AI systems from that standpoint. And doing so will benefit both the public and the profession. If you'd like to learn more about the resource, there are contact buttons on the bottom of the home page. You can sign up for a newsletter, much like what Alex described for her resource, and there's also a send us a message button. Thanks so much for your interest in algorithmic literacy for journalists.
All right, thanks so much, Andy. Do we have any initial questions for Andy? I'm just checking the doc, checking the chat. All right. Lots of praise, but no questions yet, we appreciate that too. That's great. All right, so we will move on to Aura. And if any questions come up or you have anything you'd like any of the fellows to answer after their demo, feel free to throw it on the Google Doc and we will try to get to it at the end. Oh, Andy, we have one question real quick. Can you tell us the specific ways the algorithmic literacy work you're doing can prevent journalists from making mistakes on the algorithm in the reporting?
Let's see. So I'm not quite sure what making mistakes on the algorithm is, but one of the kind of design features of the site is that it doesn't presume background knowledge in computer science. But of course, journalists need to know something about how algorithms work. So one of the places I would start, let's see, I might just share my screen briefly again. One of the places I would start, if I'm understanding the question accurately, is just with the kinds of questions that journalists ask, or that you can ask when you're covering a story. And so, there are practical questions like, what can this algorithm do? How is this system developed? How accurate is it? And for each of these, there's sub-questions that can be dialed in to talk about particular algorithms or particular AI systems. And so I think that's maybe one answer to the question, but again, I'm not completely sure that I'm tracking the question.
All right. All right. All right. Aura, go ahead. Sorry, I know you shared and then unshared, but great.
No worries. I didn't want to jump the gun. Can you all see my screen all right and hear me?
Yep, you're great.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for being here. It means so much that you're taking time to look at our projects we've been working on. My name is Aura Walmer, and I'm an information designer, data scientist, and artist. And today I'm sharing the Data Sonification Toolkit, a resource to help journalists learn about data sonification and use it in their work. Sonification is the practice of turning data into sound and music. And this method presents a perfect opportunity to make data journalism more accessible and emotionally impactful. So you can see here the homepage. This toolkit can be found at sonificationkit.com. And this is the landing page, which is just an overview of how to use this toolkit, how to navigate it, and some immediate links to launch you to some sections of interest. You can also toggle from light mode to dark mode, just in terms of what is most visually comfortable for you. And this toolkit is set up with a left-hand side panel so that you can jump directly to chapters if you like, or move chronologically through the content, sort of as a book if you like. So it starts off with concepts, and this covers the basic concepts of data sonification. What is data sonification? Some immediate examples, specifically in journalism from the New York Times, NPR, etc. And talking about, just including plenty of examples right off the bat, talking about the benefits and applications of sonification. Why even try this? Why is it worth it? Just in terms of, it's so engaging and it's accessible, which are really important, I think, priorities in data journalism. Also covering how you can take components of sound and map them to dimensions of audio, and really breaking down different ways of doing that. Plenty of resources embedded in here as well. What choices you're making in the data and what choices you're making in audio. There's a section on design and aesthetic, really thinking about the design of your sonification and thinking about the tone of your story and how much that can impact listeners emotionally. A couple more examples here, and some additional research included as well. And also training the listener. How do you provide a sonic vocabulary to help listeners really understand what your sonification means? And the next section is methods. So the most common of which are parameter mapping and audification. But I add plenty of detail here and lots of embedded examples for you to read up on that and find or listen to these different methods, as well as the manual / punk version of sonification. The tools section is organized by tools by ease of use. So organized a list of tools that you can use for sonification, categorized by easy or intermediate / difficult. So if you click on a tool, it will expand and you'll see the categorization, the description, links, documentation, everything you need to get started for using a particular tool. I've also included audio editing tools that you might want to try when you're customizing your sonification. And speaking of audio editing, I have a section on audio editing. So this is all about customizing your sonification project and offering up some potential workflows that you can follow when you're thinking about how to really add more detail and layers to the design of your sonification and how to really connect with your listeners. And I've provided some additional resources here. And so there's a resource chapter, which is categorized or broken up by documentation, articles, guides and tutorials, data sources, and presentations, podcasts, interviews. So depending on what you're looking for and what inspiration you want to find, you can navigate through this section and start reading more about sonification and find more examples out there. And so speaking of examples, there is a section on examples. I've been building a data table of examples of sonification in journalism, specifically, really thinking about that context. This is still being built out, but it has a good number of examples if you're just looking to start hearing what are examples of sonification. I want to start really understanding this by listening. I think this is a great place to start. Also provided a roadmap here where you can really plan out your sonification project, think about the steps involved from developing your goal and really brainstorming to designing and picking your method, customizing, and finally sharing your work and everything. So just trying to map that out, but of course every workflow can be different, and this is an open creative method as well. I'm also developing some quick exercises that folks can try. And in the connect section down here, I've offered up some active communities in data sonification if you're looking to connect with others and ask more questions or collaborate with folks. There's plenty of communities out there practicing sonification. There's also an opportunity to share your project. If you've used this resource and you've tried sonification and you want to share it, there's an opportunity to submit. And I'm developing a shout out and submission section of the toolkit. There's also, you can find out more about this project, obviously our RJI Fellowship and the articles that I've published through the fellowship, and a way to contact me. And if you're interested in receiving updates as I make changes to this resource, you can go ahead and put in your email here and I will send occasional updates. Promise not to bombard your inbox. But I'll be making additional updates to this tool as the year progresses. And of course, if you have suggestions for this toolkit, you see something missing or you think something should be changed, at the top here, there's a link to contribute to the toolkit where it's the same form, but you would want to suggest a change. And finally, if you'd like to contact me directly, there's a way to do that as well. So
we do have a couple questions. First, there is a request.
Great.
Could you just play a little bit of a sonification so people who aren't sure what they are can kind of hear what this can help them do? Do you have a favorite?
So I tried to put a few on the landing page here, just introducing. One of the more famous ones is an audio visual. And I don't know how quick it is, but hopefully you can hear the sound of my computer. So I'm going to test it out and let me know if you can. Can you hear that?
No, we cannot. All right. Why don't you throw the link in the chat?
Sure
and then
thing.
They can play it.
Okay. I'll drop a couple of immediate links just following this, and then people can follow them. But if you do go to the toolkit, go straight to the example section, you'll find lots of examples.
All right. And then the next question, what are some basic ways you would suggest a print journalist use sonification? Should we take parts of our existing audio interviews and do anything in particular with it? Could you offer some concrete examples?
Absolutely. So in terms of print journalism, I mean, this is great if you're publishing digitally as well. But something I've experimented with is grabbing audio segments from reporting stories that I found. I did a project on New York City eviction data and pulled clips of interviews and sort of layered that underneath or within my sonification. So I had a parameter mapping where you could hear the increase in evictions over time and then a drop during COVID and then an increase again. But during that time, you might have snippets of the news, like what's going on in history along that time frame. So there's plenty of ways you can, if you're interviewing folks and you have that recorded content, that's a great, that's something wonderful that you can include in your sonification. It doesn't have to be this purely tool-based output, which is something that I also address in the audio editing section of the toolkit. Talks a little bit more about taking it beyond just using a tool and making it your own and really being able to customize. Hopefully that answers the question.
All right, thanks so much. I'll save the next question for after everybody's demoed. If you have more questions for Aura, any of our fellows, please feel free to throw them on the Google Doc and I will get to as many of them as I can at the end. So next we have Michelle and
Thank you.
Alyssa.
Hey, I'm Alyssa Schukar. Michelle Kanaar and I are co-directors of Prism Photo, a nonprofit organization that supports diverse photojournalists to tell the stories of underrepresented people and communities with dignity. We do this through education, mentoring, funding, community, and a free yearly workshop. We also collaborate with local newsrooms to offer tailored practical resources for working with visuals.
Photojournalism is a vital part of local news. It drives reader engagement, increases revenue, and tells stories in ways other media cannot. Studies show that images impact emotions faster and more powerfully than words, and that stories with visuals garner 94% more total views. Unfortunately, many local news organizations lack dedicated visual staff, like photo directors, photo editors, and photojournalists who are able to create and maximize the use of impactful quality visual journalism. This absence of visual expertise can diminish newsrooms' return on their investment in journalism and limit how and even if they're engaging with the reporting.
Our toolkit, which is free, lives on Prism Photo's website. This resource was informed by a recent survey with Catchlight of nearly 70 local newsrooms, and it fills visual skill gaps by providing guidance on how to find diverse photographers, develop clear contracts, create search-optimized image libraries, use vetted stock resources, harness visuals to increase revenue, and much more. It also emphasizes equitable working conditions to promote sustainability and diversity in the industry. We'll start our tour with our freelancer and database recommendations. We have a list of vetted US and international photographer databases that allow searches by skill set and other information. We also offer a freelance intake form that enables newsrooms to create their own databases with local photographers. So newsrooms can create their own copy, which will then live on the newsroom's Google Drive. Next, we'll look at our contracts resource. Offering plain spoken contracts provides clarity, protection, and accountability for publications and freelance photojournalists. Our guide offers contract terms and definitions, recommendations, legal resources, and sample contract language. In our conversations with newsrooms, we also learned that most newsroom websites always need a visual to go with a story. And so when it comes to using stock, handout photos, or AI-generated illustrations, when original photojournalism is not possible, we offer guidelines around use and transparency, as well as a list of vetted sites to source images. We also recommend a decision-making framework to guide newsrooms when and how to use stock and AI. And in this decision-making framework, we make recommendations about image use based on origin, context and purpose, ethical and legal considerations, and transparency. And the last toolkit resource we'll highlight today includes ways for newsrooms to further their return on their investments in visuals. You can review 2 replicable case studies to increase engagement and revenue. Here's one case study in which a nonprofit organization raised $26,000 through a print auction. And in these sections, we include useful information about process, materials, and tips for success so that you might be able to replicate them within your organizations and newsrooms.
Take us back to the main page. So this practical resource in our toolkit is designed to equip newsrooms with the knowledge needed to manage visuals to grow audience, increase revenue, and very importantly, increase community trust in media. We're excited to launch this free resource and help newsrooms build a visual infrastructure for their future. If you want to receive like PDF versions of our templates, get updates or training on software, you can sign up here or here in the navigation bar. And I appreciate you taking the time to be here. If you have any questions, let us know.
All right, any questions? No question, just applauding your work.
You
Thanks,
got
Chris.
outbid.
That's always appreciated. All right. Okay, we will move on to the next. And if you have any questions for Alyssa and Michelle, feel free to throw them on the doc and we will get to them at the end. Okay, so Zoli and Dana, you are up.
All right, thank you. So I'll just give you a second to get your screens and we'll get started.
We're all set.
Okay, if you can go ahead and share. My name is Dana Amihere and Zoli Csernatony is my partner. And together we have created a tool called DigInThere. It's a free audience engagement tool for news publishers to recognize and to reward their audiences for thoughtful consumption of their work. We know we live in a society of skimmers. You swipe right, you swipe left, you swipe up because you get tired of things. So this is trying to be an answer to how we get readers to stick with our content, and not only to stick with it through the end, but to actually take in what it meant. Like, what do you understand from it? All right. So with that, this is what the quiz actually looks like. It's short. There's 4 options. It's a multiple choice 4 option quiz. When you actually generate a quiz, which Zoli will show you in a few minutes, you're able to process whatever your written content is by URL. And we're also working on having a text field. So if it's paywalled, you can copy and paste it in. It generates by default 10 questions, and then it randomly picks from those questions for however long you want the quiz to be. Our default is 5 questions, and you have about 90 seconds per question, which is about what we calculate that folks need in order to answer, like read through, process. There's a timer bar at the top that if you mouse over, you can see how much time you have left. The boxes that mouse over purple, those are how many questions you have left. You can go back and forth. You have 2 lifelines. So there's part of the gamified experience. If you remember Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you've got 50-50, where you can get rid of 2 incorrect answers, or we have something called 1 for 2. You can swap an entire question for 2 new questions that you may know the answer to more easily. So the main features of DigInThere, though we found a couple of other use cases, the main features for publishers are perk giveaways. So it's an opportunity for quiz takers to earn rewards, things like event tickets to something that your newsroom is putting on, or merchandise. We've gotten a lot of other ideas from newsrooms that we've worked with as well. But the idea is to allow audience members to earn rewards in exchange for passing a quiz. And in receiving something for their efforts, newsrooms, you're able to build trust and to build loyalty. The other main feature of this is what we call community gateways. So quiz takers, after they've proven kind of a baseline of number of quizzes that they've been able to pass or a number of points that they've been able to accumulate, again, that gamification, they're invited into a private community, whether that's a Discord forum. Some publishers we've spoken with said closed Facebook groups or Slack channels are better for their audiences, but it's a way for similarly engaged readers to come together in what we hope is civil conversation and to turn them from being readers into doers in the community. Hopefully what they read and what they react to and their ability to be able to even talk to some people on staff will make them want to do something out in their community. So with that, we're going to show you how exactly to generate a quiz, and then we'll wrap up with a few things that we're doing moving forward. So I'll hand it over to Zoli.
Perfect. So with full realization that publishers and news people are already starved for time and resources, we try to make it as easy and like effortless of a process to generate a quiz and run it for any piece of content as we could. Part of which has to do with just starting out the quiz by pasting in the URL. Basically, this quiz works with any type of content so long as it has a URL, and it will parse the URL and make out all the metadata and the important details of the article, like you can see it being hovered over. And from then on, you can call on an LLM to draft you a set of questions, which you're encouraged to, at the very least, review and correct. But you can actually add totally new questions and tweak the generated ones to your liking and until they seem correct and engaging enough. And once you're done with that part, it's on to the perk offering section, which allows you to upload different perks that the readers stand to win by taking passing the quiz. Basically, this is one example is to propose a topic for the newsrooms to cover. So if the user has or a reader has a suggestion as to like a missing beat or just an interesting personal interest of theirs, they can just broach that basically by making it act like an official channel. And once the quiz is over for everyone, then the results are basically rendered for the entirety of the readership, and you as the publisher will get an admin dashboard to administer the winnings to the winning users. Like you can see that it details the actions that you need to fulfill or take to deliver on your promise, the perks. And there's an audience engagement section that will implement a feature to allow it to be hooked up with your KPIs that you're most interested in. So if you're after page views or new subscribers, you can do that, tracking those alongside ours. And basically, this is ours is a highly experimental approach, and we made it intently as such. This brings with it the possibility that there might be use cases that we haven't even conceived of, and we'd like to invite every single publisher to come up with their best use case or feature, and we'll make sure to implement them to make their experience as smooth as it can be. And we encourage you to drop us a line, and we're happy to share you or do a demo with you and prepare you to make the most of this tool, basically, to engage your audience.
Great. So first question is, who funds the perks and gifts? Can you guys explain a little bit how those work for everybody watching?
Sure. So
I can go into it from the news publisher side. So whatever you offer as a newsroom, you are responsible for fulfilling. So if you have, you already sell, the ubiquitous news tote bag. If you have that as a perk that you want to offer, you're responsible for making sure that people actually get them. And there's a disclaimer on the site that says, we're not responsible for delivering your stuff. If you don't follow through with it, that one's on you. But there are things that are non-physical that we've gotten a lot of traction on. So younger Gen Z folks said, give us a coupon code for our local coffee shop. Like, we will take quizzes all day for you for free food. And like, we don't want physical stuff. We want things that we can, like, practical things. Some news consumers have told us that, if I got a free ticket to an event that the newsroom is holding, I would be really good with that. Other things that places have told us that are more subscription based, they've said that, we'd offer like a 2 or 3 month trial for free as a perk. So you're not necessarily limited to things that you have to buy. A lot of these are engagement tools that really won't cost you anything, but may build you a more loyal following.
Great, thanks so much. So if anyone else has questions, please throw them on the Google Doc. We will get to them after all our demos. And Katherine, you are up next. Take it away.
Thank you so much. And thanks to RJI, Kat Duncan, my fellows, and all of you for being here. I am Katherine Reynolds Lewis. I'm the founder of the Institute for Independent Journalists, and I'm excited to present the Freelance Quick Start Guide that I created for my RJI Fellowship. The goal of this guide is to shorten the time frame from launching a freelance business to reaching sustainability so that freelancing becomes a more viable path for journalists that is not just a dead end, but a part of anyone's career progression. And as of 2021, according to the Pew Research Center, 34% of journalists were freelance, and we suspect that number has only grown since then. The Institute for Independent Journalists, if you're not familiar, is an organization of and for freelancers of color. We have lots of resources and opportunities to connect, and everyone is welcome. We believe in building a multiracial network of freelancers. Our mission is the emotional and financial sustainability of freelancers of color. To understand this audience and what people need, we surveyed 500 freelancers to identify the barriers and the challenges that they're experiencing, as well as why they became freelancers, which may not be as involuntary as a lot of people think. And we also asked, what are they looking for in terms of support? We found that they primarily need business education and tools, as well as access to work to gatekeepers who give out freelance assignments. So to supplement this survey, I did phone-in Zoom interviews with over a dozen freelancers about their specific pain points. One of the things about freelancing and supporting freelancers is that it's such a common term in our industry that there's a lot of erroneous assumptions out there about what you need to do and when do you start. A big part of being successful and using your time effectively is knowing what not to do. So these are just a few highlights from those conversations with freelancers. Informed by these interviews and our survey, I identified the core areas where freelancers were fumbling or facing difficulty in reaching sustainability and built the freelance startup guide around those areas. So they are these modules: your niche or brand as a freelancer and what rates you're charging, how you approach sales and marketing, what your time management strategies and other systems, such as tracking invoices and doing work, how you think about project scope, understanding contracts, risk management, and finally, business structure, which I intentionally put last because often that's where people start. But in fact, you really need to just get work to be a successful freelancer, and worrying about all the other stuff can wait. All of the strategies, tools, and mindset coaching in the guide fall into one of these buckets. So this is the landing page of the guide itself, which is hosted by the Association of Independents in Radio, our good friends and partners on their learning partner platform SoundPath. So to get in, you just click checkout for free, and that brings you to it brings you to checkout for free, and then afterwards you get access to the guide through SoundPath. It starts with this pre-survey that helps us understand where freelancers are starting. So the cost to access this is zero. It will remain zero. And what's included in each module, after you take the survey, you can proceed to each module in turn. And they're a combination of videos of me in various locations around my house and the world, as well as exercises that you can journal on or reflect on separately, and tools that will help you to use ongoing in your freelance business, not just to start. So this navigation bar is really your guide on the left side. And it, some of the topics that are covered are hourly rate and business identity, finding your anchor clients. If you don't know what an anchor client is, learn in the guide, as well as marketing, sales, how to understand your own motivation and develop systems for keeping yourself targeted, and then time management, the power of a time budget, starting to think about your business plan, understanding project scope, what actually is in a contract. Oops, oh dear, I backed out of it. There we go. And we also have, sample contracts, sample checklist for the discovery call, proposals, all of that kind of thing. So that's sort of the scope of the guide. And if you're a freelancer, we would love for you to try it. If you know a colleague who is freelancing, please share it with them. We're really interested in feedback. We're building on all of our resources all the time. So please get in touch with me and the team. And if you have other suggestions of things we should do or ideas for resources we should add, please get in touch with me by email, phone, on our website, theiij.com.
Great, thank you so much. It looks like lots of praise, but I don't see any new questions. One person did ask if it would stay free, and Katherine said absolutely. So that one is good. If you end up with any more questions, feel free to throw them in the doc. And we will move on to Kate. Last but not least, you are up.
Let me move the chat over so y'all can't see that. So my name is Kate Myers, and I have taken my close to 20 years of experience in this industry and now founded Purple Pen Labs, which is a consultancy focused on supporting organizations as they improve and start to move through change, sometimes good, sometimes bad. When I started this fellowship, I wanted to help leaders shore up their organizations by really helping them prevent the worst failures, address their biggest operational pain points, so they wouldn't find themselves in crisis mode due to operational challenges. Because I know from unfortunate, painful experience, when operations fails, everything else tends to fall apart as well. We can't do the journalism that we need. We can't deliver the impact we want to have, and we can't drive the change we need to do in the world. As I went through this fellowship and worked with many different leaders in this industry, I found myself shifting my focus. What if instead of just preventing the worst, we really aimed for the best in improving organizations? So pushing organizations to excellence. So as part of that, through this program, we've launched the Excellence.is organizational sustainability program. When the strategic operational foundation is solid, teams can be more innovative, employees are more engaged, and most importantly, financial resources can go farther. So instead of launching a set of best practices, a manual, because there's a lot of those out there in the space already, I really wanted to build a program to directly engage organizations who want some targeted support to improve and to change. So here is how the Excellence.is program works. So there's a couple phases. The first phase is a self-assessment. So leaders of organizations or operational leaders, strategic leaders, or otherwise of different organizations start with a 30-minute self-guided self-guided reflection to rate their organizations in key areas such as strategic alignment, organizational effectiveness, operational tools, financial confidence. Each of the, so there's a number of different sections and opportunities where sections to this survey here, where every leader is asked to reflect on their performance from a scale of 1 to 9. We really try to keep the median here on a 5 so that we can get a sense of really encouraging people to use the whole scale. Spoiler alert, people are actually using the whole scale, so greatly appreciate that. So there's about 4 to 6 questions per page and an opportunity for people to add some additional context through a number of open-ended questions. So you can see a bunch of the different categories we look at. You can track your progress as we go. We look, as I said, strategic alignment, focus on people, focus on organizational effectiveness, how effective you are at actually executing your work, designing your organization, supporting your team and supporting your people, more systems, and then you can get into financial strength and sustainability. So the website to actually look at the self-assessment is Excellence.is. And for those of you that are interested, know that your progress is saved. So you can start the survey and come back to it as you would need. The second phase of the process, second phase of the program is the results are sent to me for, you can see there's 82 questions to the survey. The results are sent to me for analysis, and then I develop a personalized set of recommendations to come back to each organization. So we'll have a sense of the overall scores for each of the different areas. We'll share some insights from specific questions and then dig into some of the key areas that I saw that the organizations could focus on and work on. So in this case, this Lorem Ipsum organization, you can see financial sustainability and people and organizational stability were the places I thought they were best to work on. As we go to the final thoughts, we will shift to the third phase. We do also have some overall recommendations that we've developed. As we go to the third phase, the final phase is an opportunity to do a strategy session with me to actually take these take the recommendations and turn them into some actual actionable steps for people to take. So you can notice I'm setting aside some time every week to both go over and develop these results, as well as have these meetings with different organizations. So far, over the last week, we've had 5 organizations jump into the program. We've had at least as many others express interest or begin the survey, and 3 different journalism support organizations potentially express some interest in working with their members or clients into the program. There's a lot of manual work in this program, so there's a little bit more support, a little bit more work that will continue to happen behind the scenes as we continue to launch and support this program. Really excited to have the opportunity to work with RJI here for their support. Really want to thank RJI for their support. Thank everybody in the industry who's contributed their time. And since I'm the last one to go, thanks to all of y'all for showing up here, but really to all of my great fellow travelers and for all the fellows in this program, for all of us. You've just had the privilege to hear from them, and it has been a great, long and fantastic 9 months of working together. So,
wonderful. So we do have some questions. So is Excellence.is for people who run their own self-employed business as well? How will you help them differently since so many journalists are freelance now?
Yeah, I saw this question in the chat. I thought it's an important area. It's important. All right. So right now, the program is designed for independent news organizations and nonprofits, because that's what my experience is in the conversations that I've had. One of the ways we could But however, a lot of the learnings are valuable to, as Katherine said, to freelancers setting up their businesses. I think the tool would have to be evolved a bit to zoom in and focus on some of the specific needs of freelancers. But if there's interest and capacity, it's certainly something Katherine would probably be interested in working with me, or IJ would be interested in working with me on. There's also some opportunity here, some requests I've already gotten to do different versions of this survey. So looking at sort of potential conferences and such in the future, there will be some iterations of this survey for different either audiences or contexts. So great question. Thanks. Great suggestion.
There are a couple relating to pay. So one is, how is this different than the sustainability audits like Lion does? And a couple people want to know, at some point, do you charge for your consulting?
So it's two good questions. One, there are it's a good, I did try to set some distinctions between the Lion support and this. I think it'll continue to evolve. I want this to run. I think there's different value that each of the different programs offer. So I do see this as distinct. I think there are some key changes, changes. That said, I would be very excited to work with Lion as one of the JSOs to see if they're interested. In terms of pay, so this is separate from my, I do consulting work with different organizations. So the program here, as with all of our tools, is free. So we can go through, I've set aside time in between my paid work to do these kind of complementary sessions and to potentially refer people to other resources that they may need. So this program itself is free. My general business is actually helping different organizations more deeply.
Great. So this question is for Katherine. Do you keep a database of editor emails and pay rates as a part of the freelance guide?
So we do link to many of the other wonderful resources out there, like AIR's pay rate survey that they just released, Who Pays Writers, and the Freelance Solidarity Project also has a great database. One of my goals with the IIJ is to complement the existing resources out there, so as not to duplicate what folks are already working on. In terms of editor emails, honestly, it changes so quickly. It's sad to say in our industry. We do have an internal database that we use and update to invite editors to speak at our events, which include our free monthly webinars, our annual conference, which is almost free, in-person workshop that'll be in Chicago this summer at the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, and our Business of Freelancing course, which is offered in the spring and the fall. So we use it internally, but to have a public-facing database is really challenging to keep it updated just because of all of the turnover, unfortunately, in our field. And that sounds like a great RJI project, is to use some kind of, AI scraping tool to keep that database updated. So if anyone's working on it, I would love to collaborate on that. In terms of pay rates, I think that's just something we just need to keep sharing more and more. The resources I mentioned are great, and the more that are developed. I know the Open Notebook also has a lot of great resources on pay and pitching and other aspects of freelancing. But if you go to our website, theiij.com, on the resources page, we try to link to all of the other resources out there, including Prism Photo Workshop for visual journalists and folks who are working in the same space.
Great. So Andy, this question is for you. For readers who aren't familiar with algorithms or how they work in their daily lives, how can we find hooks that make the stories feel relevant to people's lives and help them understand?
I love that question because I think it gets to the very heart of what motivated this project in the first place, which is the idea of creating that connection where journalists are super influential and pivotal positions to helping the public understand these technologies. And so there are examples under the additional resources section of exemplary reporting that that span a range of topics from health to, like humanitarian crises. But I think one of the things is just to think creatively about how the tech that many of us use every day in our lives without thinking about it is driven by algorithms, right? So everything from search to recommendation systems. One of my favorite refrains is search, when we use DuckDuckGo or Google or whatever to search for something, that search is not a neutral channel. And so partly like the DIY algorithm audits section is one way to begin unpacking that. Take a topic that you're interested in, and maybe run it through several search engines and see the different results you get. And you can write stories out of that. Avram Anderson, one of my colleagues who helped on this project, and I have published stories doing just that, looking at, for instance, what kind of stories are being promoted on news aggregators, and what kind of and what aspects of those stories are being marginalized or distorted as a result of how search engines or the news aggregators are processing them. So I think there's almost unlimited options because of the prevalence of these technologies in our everyday lives, unlimited options for good reporting. And just one key resource where it's almost impossible to keep the exemplary reporting section up to date. We haven't even tried. But one of the links in that section of additional resources is to the Solutions Journalism Network, which has a whole section on algorithms and AI. That the thing that's lovely about that is these are solutions focused stories as well. So it's not all what one of the people whose work influenced my thinking on this project, it's not all the doomers saying like, oh, it's like Terminator 2 and we're all going to die because algorithms are going to, AI systems are going to blow up the world. There are really positive stories about how communities and organizations are harnessing the power of AI to address systemic inequalities and injustices too.
All right. This question is for Alyssa and Michelle. Are there ways photographers can use the toolkit to advocate for themselves when working with newsrooms who don't have dedicated visual teams?
Yes,
Michelle,
sure.
you want to go ahead?
I can jump in, Alice, and then feel free to add anything. Yes, I think that there's a lot of useful information in the contracts section that talks about just terms and licensing and rights, who owns the rights, the photographer, the newsroom, things like that. I think that that's really helpful to point to. Additionally, in our assignment workflow page, and we put these links in the Google Docs too, but there we have kind of what information photographers need to get started and to do their job well, and also payment terms and timelines. So I think that's very important, especially if you have a lot of upfront costs. We note that in that section. It's important for photographers to get paid so that they're safe in the field, because if they have to pay for that all up out of pocket and something comes up that they have to deal with, they might not be able to. And then we also have a safety guideline section, which is really important. And it talks about risk mitigation and physical and digital safety. So I would recommend that as well. And a little off topic, not too much, kind of what informed this toolkit actually was also a survey that Alyssa and I did with Catchlight of nearly 70 newsrooms. And that report will be out next month. And I think that will be really helpful too, using those findings to advocate for your rights with these newsrooms and the needs of freelancers. Alyssa, anything else?
Yeah, I'll add a couple things. That was perfect. We also have resources on prismphotoworkshop.org that you can access. You have to sign up for our newsletter in order to get the password. But it's like got a lot of good stuff about running your own business and basically establishing the foundation of a successful freelance career. And then I just wanted to add a little bit on the contracts thing. In speaking with different newsrooms as we were putting together the toolkit, we found that often the contracts could be adjusted to be more beneficial to the photographer, to be a little bit more equity minded. It's just often that folks don't necessarily understand what the contract is that they're offering. And so I'm hoping that both newsrooms and photographers can use that specific resource as a launching point for a conversation about creating contracts that are beneficial and make sense for both parties.
All right, so we have a couple questions that anyone can jump in on. One of them is, are any of these resources also have downloadable versions to help people learn? So I know some of you do. If anybody would like to talk about if you have downloadable things in your toolkits or websites.
Yeah, I think everything that's not a video is downloadable. Or like if it's a spreadsheet, you can copy it and make your own spreadsheet.
Great.
We do as well. So if you, it's the same system that Alyssa described for our other resource page. So if you sign up for our newsletter for the toolkit, you'll get the PDF versions of all the templates and guides.
All right. And why don't we wrap with this fun question for everybody? How are you thinking about taking your projects forward, and what is next for this work?
I'll go. As soon as I say that, my voice, losing my voice. So we have some really cool, exciting things coming for the future. We started this targeted definitely at news publishers, and as we interviewed more people, especially in different types of newsrooms geographically, in terms of what audiences they serve, they started coming up with ways to use it that specifically dealt with news content, like more like a civic education series, or trying to help people understand their municipal government and like a much really small like role plays. To, we have this program where we work with youth. We'd like to do more of an educational use case for them. And that expanded us into working with several community colleges and some educators who are interested in pulling this into their lesson plan to get students to learn, like, and to comprehend and actually take in information about things like digital literacy and media literacy. So this approach we're seeing has multifaceted applications, and as more people come up with them, we're trying to look specifically at 2 or 3 of them through the course of the year as a case study.
That's great. That's put well. One of the use cases that excites us the best is probably the one that is making quizzes to act as though they were gateways to community engagement. This way, just really sieving out problematic, hateful speech without actually clamping down on free speech. And this is our approach to, or our take on trying to really strike this delicate balance between like free speech and safe speech. So that's one. Another.
Great. Alex, what's next for you on this project? What's your next step?
I am actually going to continue on the A/B testing portion to add it onto my resource as well. I know I mentioned that in the presentation, but we're in the middle of it right now. We're sort of testing ads, and we're going to test some of the tools that you saw in my Figma. And then I just got accepted to the NPA certification program, so I'm really excited about that, just as a continuation on like the work that I've been doing here through RJI. So that sort of kind of spearheaded me into doing that. I'm really excited.
Great. Anyone else have some plans for the next steps of their project?
I can jump in. Yeah, I'm going to continue, of course, developing this toolkit, but something I'd really like to do is start bringing workshops and demos to conferences, but also to specific teams and newsrooms or podcasters. I'd really like to work directly with folks to just help them practice sonification and yeah, get more comfortable with the method. But also some of the resources in there, I'd like to get more embedded content and convert the example archive into more of an interactive database and make sure it's accessible as well. So that's something I'm really interested to do. So looking to support and encourage people with sonification generally.
Great. And you are speaking at NICAR tomorrow,
Yep.
correct? So if any of you
Yes.
who are here today are at NICAR right now, you can go bug our in person and learn more about how to use her toolkit.
Yes,
I
I can share the
could I
link to
jump?
that session as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Andy, go ahead.
Thanks, Kat, and thanks, Lex, for that question. My dream for this project would be that some journalists and newsrooms that haven't been doing any kind of algorithmic reporting would start doing it by using some of the resources from the ALFJ website. And so what I'm doing in the next couple months, the next year really, to try to make that dream into a reality is reaching out to newsrooms or encouraging people who have colleagues who might be interested to contact me, and trying to help facilitate that kind of reporting. So that's my goal in the next handful of months and beyond.
Great. Anyone else? Alyssa?
Specifically with the toolkit, we'll be offering an opportunity for folks to receive training on the program that we recommend to be used for archiving images, for creating search optimized image archives. And then we also in May have on May 3rd in Chicago at Columbia College have our annual workshop for early career photographers. Again, it's focused on establishing sustainable careers, and building community, just getting these really important foundational stones underneath folks. Michelle, you want to talk about the survey?
Yeah, and I will just add also that the workshop in May is free. It's a full day, and we also have free portfolio reviews and mentorship sessions. And then, yeah, the survey that we previously mentioned with Catchlight, that report will be going out next month, and I think that will be really helpful. And it lays out, common challenges and needs and how to address them, and just trends that we're seeing in visual journalism in local news. And Alyssa and I have already started consulting with newsrooms. So, they've already been using the toolkit, and then we've been consulting them on specific needs and how to tailor the resources there to their specific newsroom. So that's been really fun. And if you're interested in that, just send us an email.
Great. And Katherine, I thought I saw you unmute for a second.
Yes, I think one of the things I'm excited about is as people start to use the guide and test it out, that we'll get good metrics on what actually moves the needle and helps people to reach sustainability more quickly. So I'm really excited about the results from the pre-survey, and then we're also going to have a post-survey where we can really assess, what were the things that you changed, what were the mindsets that you adopted, or systems that really substantially made a difference. Because I was a full-time freelancer for 16 years, making more than I did as a national correspondent at Bloomberg News. So, and I know it's possible for anyone. And I think the key is just to unlock what are the main decision points that are, when you make it different, that you appreciably gain control of your time and your income, and you're able to do great journalism without feeling like you're just a pawn in the system. So.
Lovely. Okay, there's some
I'll
great...
share.
Let's go for it.
Sorry. I was just going to say I've already shared with y'all some of the ways that I'm keeping this live, but aside from writing 4 more reports today, I am also really looking for feedback on this as I think about taking this to different, customizing this for different audiences. So please feel free to go through the tool, even if you are not going to submit it. Would love to see what other people's thoughts are when I look at customizing this.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that is everyone. So if you are here today and you have more questions, please feel free to drop them on the doc. I am going to share this recording and the Google Doc again to everyone in an email after this. So the fellows will be able to see more of your questions and answer them, but you will also have links to their profiles, contact informations, projects, and articles. So if any particular project or all of them that you absolutely loved, you can continue to read, use, and ask questions. So thank you so much, everyone who came today. We really appreciate all the wonderful questions and getting to show you all these amazing resources. And please keep in touch. Let us know how it's going. Tell us how it's working in your newsrooms. Ask us questions. I shared my email a couple times, but I'll also put it on the Google Doc. I'm happy to make introductions to any of our fellows in our projects and facilitate any training or demos that might be useful in your newsrooms and your work. So we're just really excited to get all these resources out there, and we are happy to help make sure that it happens for you. So thank you again, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend, and I hope it's warm wherever you are so that you can enjoy it. Thanks so much, fellows, and congratulations on finishing your fellowship. We are just so proud of you and your work, and we're so excited to get to share everything that you've built.
Bye. Thank you so much, Kat, and everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Take care.